Hey church, it is so good to join you again. This is of course the last time that we will be meeting for our life groups. I know at my community group we're hosting a potluck and kind of a celebration of the end of our semester of life groups. So you will see me again in February when we start up life groups for the spring semester. Here's a few challenges that I want to throw out. Number one, if you've gone to life groups and you have been going to your life group in another person's home, I want you to prayerfully consider what it might look like for you to host a life group. Now, just because you host a life group doesn't mean that you have to lead the life group. One of the things we really want to stress is this mixing and enmeshing of the life groups. So you probably won't have the exact same life group and it won't look the exact same way in the spring as it has this fall. This has been a real blessing, at least to my home, to host. It certainly has been work. My wife has done an excellent job, so I want to throw out a shout out to her on that. She's done a great job, and I've really been thankful for it. I've been thankful for my group. But if we don't have a fluctuating schedule of hosting places, we won't be able to do the life groups. And so this semester, I know Tina has done a life group, Gayla has done a life group, Craig and Jesse have done a life group, Valerie and I have done a life group. When I do it correct, Gayla and Keith have hosted the life group. And so I'm saying all those things because it's really important that we recognize the sacrifice that some have made in opening up their homes, but be willing, if it's been worth it for you and it's been enjoyable for you, make sure that you are thinking about what it might mean for you to host a life group as well. And that's going to be a really important thing to see this continue on. So please prayerfully consider that. Well, let me jump to the text because I think that it's also a really important thing. Again, we're going to wrap up the book of Acts at the end of the year. So that means we've been looking at the book of Acts from 2015 all the way to the end of 2019, 4 years. A really cool thing. A lot of churches wouldn't spend that amount of time, but my hope is that you have a really good understanding of what's been going on in Acts. So we have seen Paul, and he has now been, of course, kept in custody in Jerusalem, in Caesarea, and by being kept in Caesarea, he is now under basically the rule of Felix. We see here in today's verses, Acts 24 to Acts 25, 1 to 12, we see that Felix and his wife, Drusilla, get an opportunity to sit down with Paul one-on-one. Paul shares the gospel with them, but Felix and his hard heart reject it. It says for the next 2 years or so, Felix meets with Paul, hoping that Paul would give him some type of a bribe. Paul doesn't do that. And then Felix leaves and hands things over to Festus. When Festus shows up, he again calls a trial. A really similar thing to what had occurred when people met with Felix first occurs. And it's at that point Paul demands that he goes to Rome. A really interesting thing here. God had promised Paul that he would go to Rome. It took 2 years for him to actually get the order to go to Rome. What did Paul do during that time? Well, he met with Felix. He met with other believers. He continued to spread the gospel wherever he was. Sometimes we have to be patient to wait for God to get us where it is we're supposed to go. So we see Paul is now getting ready to go to where he was promised to go from the beginning. In the church life, we have goals, where we want to go and how we want to see things accomplished. We need to be reminded that God is patient, not wanting anyone to perish. Maybe the whole reason that God kept Paul in Caesarea all that time was so that Felix could hear the gospel over and over and over again. Felix, as far as we know from history and from the book of Acts, never accepted that. But Paul was diligent at it. And of course he knew his ultimate place was to get to Rome. Friends, as a church, as we work to grow together, as we work to reach our community, I'm reminded that we must be patient. We must be together and we must be faithful to present the gospel time and time again. If you've learned anything from Acts, it is that God's going to get people where he wants them to get there, how he wants them to get there. Well, that's about all I have for the text. Again, I want to thank you for this great semester of community groups, and I want to encourage you to consider prayerfully hosting one. As of this point, we really don't have anyone who has signed up to host a community group. You'll see in the coming months, in the coming weeks, some opportunities to sign up to host a community group, and I really would ask you to be very prayerful about doing that. Thank you so much, and I'll see you at the end of February.